had enough money to purchase nice art.
Let's deal with the condition first of all.
Right.
There are pieces missing. You actually broke a little piece off coming in today.
I did do that.
This is an extremely fragile piece.
At the turn of the 20th century, European art pottery was bold, fragile, and proudly decorative, made for collectors who wanted beauty more than practicality. Factories across Austria pushed porcelain to its limits, creating sculptural forms that felt more like art than household objects. This figure comes from the Amphora tradition in Austria, centered in the Teplitz region. Several companies worked under the Amphora name, and this example is linked to one of the Stellmacher firms, known for high-quality casting and dramatic design. The mark on the bottom reads Paris 1900, tying it directly to the famous World Exhibition that celebrated modern art and design. Pieces marked this way were meant to impress an international audience and show just how skilled these workshops had become. This was not factory ware meant for everyday use, it was art pottery, created for people with money and taste. The piece is extremely fragile. There are small losses, and a tiny bit even broke off, which shows just how delicate this porcelain really is. Even with these condition issues, the figure still stands out. It is a cast porcelain piece, full of movement and presence as seen in this dragon design. What makes this object special is the story it carries from Paris in 1900. Fragile, flawed, and still admired, it shows how great design can survive time, accidents, and still make people say, wow.
I think a price at auction would be $7,000 to $9,000. One of the best things that Amphora ever made.
Wow.
That's what I said when I saw
Yeah,
it.
wow.
Even with a nick or two, he's a good looker.
My aunt started buying up these vases from Tiffany's, so I guess she ordered some by the crate load.
Long before collectors lined up for Tiffany glass, one family member quietly bought these pieces during the Great Depression, ordering them directly from Tiffany Studios by the crate. Louis Comfort. Tiffany was not just a glassmaker. He was first a painter, and that mattered. He believed glass should look alive, like nature frozen in color, and his studio pushed materials further than anyone else at the time. Tiffany Studios in New York became famous worldwide for turning fine art ideas into glass, often at enormous cost and risk. Tiffany Studios marked its work clearly, and even the shipping crate tells a story. The crate still shows the printed studio name, the New York address, and the word glass stamped on the sides with original straw packing still inside. Very few people ever kept these crates, which makes this one a collectible all on its own. During the 1910s and 1920s, Tiffany Studios experimented heavily with new glass formulas. One vase in the group is what collectors call pastel glass, made in the 1920s. It came in several colors and shares soft tones with Depression-era glass, but it was far more expensive at the time. Because it was later production and made in multiples, it is the least rare of the group, though still very desirable today. Another vase is a paperweight glass example, and this is where the story becomes extraordinary. According to Leslie Nash, who worked at Tiffany Studios, Louis Tiffany once walked into the workshop with a painting of Morning Glories and told the glassmakers to recreate it in glass. That challenge led to years of research and development, costing an estimated $12,000, an enormous sum at the time. This type of glass was first introduced in 1914. The example here is marked exhibition piece on the bottom, with a date letter L that places it around 1915. There is strong evidence it may have been sent to the 1915 San Francisco International Exhibition, then returned to the studio afterward. A nearly identical vase sits in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The Met's vase is numbered 1130L. This one is numbered 1132L, just two numbers apart. Even though it was likely made in 1915, pieces like this were still being sold years later, including into the 1920s. Then there is the Tiffany Lava vase. Lava glass was designed to look like molten rock frozen in motion, and it was incredibly difficult to make. Many cracked during production and never survived. This example is especially rare because of its surface texture and raised protrusions. It closely resembles a vase shown at the 1906 Paris Salon exhibition. A similar example has been held in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris since that year. Under magnification and special lighting, this vase showed no cracks or flaws at all. It is not just glass, it is a moment in American art history that somehow survived untouched.
An example like this in a retail shop could sell between $100,000 and $150,000.
Where's my brother? Wow, that's unbelievable. I had no idea.
Had tuberculosis, he knew he was dying. He went to Colorado Springs because of the salubrious climate. Van Briggle made laurel lies from 1897 until his death in 04, and they're still making them. When we look at the bottom of this piece, there's no date on it, but that's his handwriting. We know it can't be any later than 1904.
Art history sometimes begins at the end of a life, and this piece with beautiful green ridges is one of those moments. Artus Van Briggle was a peopling American potter who knew he was dying. Yet he kept working. He had tuberculosis, and doctors told him to seek cleaner air, so he moved to Colorado Springs for its healthy climate. He's best known for the Lorelei figures, inspired by myth and music, which he began making in 1897 and continued until his death in 1904. Even after his death, his studio kept producing them, which makes dating each one very important and sometimes very difficult. There is no date stamped on the bottom. What matters instead is the handwriting, which matches Van Briggle's own hand. That shows that this Lorelei could not have been made later than 1904, the year he died. This piece is more than decorative pottery. It is a quiet record of an artist racing against illness, leaving behind work that still speaks more than a century later.
Right now, I would say, because we don't have a specific date, between $20,000 and $30,000. If it's 1900, it'd be $50,000 to $100,000.
About 20 years ago, I was at an auction. It was a storage and moving type of auction.
Chinese jade has been valued for thousands of years, not just as decoration, but as a symbol of power, balance, and moral virtue. Nephrite jade, in particular, was prized by Chinese scholars and elites because of its toughness, smooth feel, and quiet beauty, and it was often shaped into ritual and decorative vessels during imperial times. Objects like this were carved slowly by hand, with great respect for the natural stone. There are no maker's marks, yet the surface shows gentle wear from years of handling, creating a soft and beautiful patina. This kind of wear tells us the object was used, not just stored away. The vessel has a deep, rounded body, a strong and powerful form in Chinese design. At the top are elegant S-curved handles, while the rim is decorated with bracket-like forms shaped like hanging leaves. These same leaf forms appear again at the base, which flares outward, giving the piece balance and weight. Inside the vessel is a shallow groove cut along the inner edge, a quiet clue that it once had a fitted lid. Sadly, that lid is missing, but the vessel itself remains remarkably intact. The jade itself is a pale green, but it is not perfectly even, and that is part of its charm. Cloudy patches, a pale brown streak, and a natural fissure running down from the top are all visible. These inclusions are natural to the stone and were often embraced by Chinese carvers rather than hidden. Based on the form, carving style, and overall feeling, this piece was likely made in the 17th or early 18th century, between the Ming and Qing dynasties. This jade vessel is a quiet reminder of Chinese artistry.
At auction, I think it's not unreasonable to estimate this to sell in the range of $10,000 to $15,000.
Really? Really? That was a good $20 investment I made. Oh my God. Well, if it had the lid, what would the value be? Would it increase the value?
I think it would be reasonable to expect it to be in the $30,000 to $50,000 range.
If it had the lid.
There was a very special couple in my life, and about 20 years ago,
Before this vase ever sat in a china cabinet, it came from a wave of innovation that changed how pottery was decorated in America. Haviland was founded by an American family who traveled to the Limoges region of France to work directly where the finest porcelain was being made, blending French skill with American ambition. Their work would later inspire entire pottery movements in the United States, including famous names like Rookwood and Wheatley. At first glance, it looks like a simple piece of old pottery. The mark on the bottom reads Haviland Limoge, which tells us it was made in the Limoges region of France, a name so respected that it later became a style others tried to copy across the United States. Cincinnati Limoges, Buffalo Limoges, and New York Limoges all borrowed the name, hoping some of that prestige would rub off. The form itself is unusual. It is likely meant as a flower holder or bud vase, with 3 small openings that make it more decorative than practical. There is no decoration on the back, only the soft background color, reminding us that this piece was designed to be viewed from one side at a time. What truly sets this piece apart is the decoration. The painted scene was done using underglaze decoration, where the image is painted onto the surface, fired, then sealed under a clear glaze and fired again. Haviland began experimenting with this technique in the early 1870s, at a time when most pottery decoration was painted on top of the glaze instead. When Haviland brought examples of this work to the Centennial Exhibition in Philadelphia in 1876, Americans were stunned. They had never seen pottery like this before, and the reaction was immediate. That single moment helped spark the rise of American art pottery, influencing countless artists and workshops across the country. There is also a decorator's mark on the front of the vase, showing who painted the scene. The exact artist behind that mark remains unknown, but the quality of the work speaks clearly without a name attached. For a vase that spent years quietly sitting in a cabinet, it turned out to be far more than just another pretty object.
And probably in an auction setting, somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000.
Very good.
Very good
nice.
Indeed. That's better than $50.
It is, very good.
When I would come home from college, when I was in my 20s, I noticed this new addition to the living room, and I thought it was pretty, but I was really busy and I didn't pay a lot of attention to it.
Long before this vase ever sat quietly in a family living room, it was made in England by Moorcroft, one of the most respected names in art pottery of the early 20th century. The company became famous for rich glazes, bold flowers, and careful handwork, and by the 1930s its pieces were already being collected and admired across the world. Moorcroft pottery was never rushed, and every object was meant to feel special, even when it was used at home. Moorcroft pieces are easy to recognize once people know what to look for. This vase features the cornflower design, a pattern the company returned to many times because of its calm, natural beauty. What makes this example stand out is the powder blue glaze, a soft blue layered over blue with gentle speckling that gives it depth and life. The raised outlines around the flowers were made using a method called tube lining. Liquid clay was squeezed through a fine nozzle, almost like icing, to draw each line by hand. After that, women decorators carefully painted in the colors before the entire piece was glazed and fired, making it a true two-step handmade process. This vase dates to around 1935 and shows off everything collectors love about Moorcroft. The shape is elegant, the form feels balanced, and the glaze sits perfectly over the surface. Its size, condition, color, and craftsmanship all come together to make it far more than decorative.
Have you thought about value?
Well, yes, actually I have. And I don't know, my mother never said a thing about value. We didn't talk about stuff like that. But I would say $300 maybe.
Well, let's bump that up a little bit. In today's market, it's probably at auction would bring somewhere between $1,200 and $1,700.
Wow!
So, yeah, wow. It's a beautiful piece. It's big, has a lot going for it, and pristine condition. So,
thank you so much. I'm stunned.
Well, this is a vase that belonged to my Aunt Catherine on my father's side. She passed it on to her son, Jim, and he passed it on to me.
Before looking closely at this vase itself, it helps to understand the name behind it. Dôme Nancy is not a person at all, but a famous glass-making firm based in the city of Nancy, France, known for its Art Nouveau glass at the turn of the 20th century. Founded by the Dôme family, the company became well known for rich enamel work, natural themes, and careful attention to detail, and its pieces were often collected by people who wanted something artistic but still functional. This particular vase is a small cabinet vase, named simply because of its size, but its decoration is what truly sets it apart. The surface shows winter woodland scenes, with slender birch trees standing out against snowy ground, and the design wraps fully around the vase instead of stopping at one side. While Dôme made many winter scenes on different objects like tall vases, goblets, and smaller forms, this specific shape is unusual and not something commonly seen. The vase dates to around 1906, placing it right in the heart of the Art Nouveau period, when glassmakers pushed both beauty and technique. The enamel decoration is carefully applied, balanced, and crisp. What makes this vase special is not just the price, but the quiet story it carries across countries.
At auction today, I would give this an estimate of $1,000 to $1,500.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
Most of what we see in North Dakota School of Mines is $300, $400, $500, sometimes $1,000. As you said, you paid almost $1,000 for this one 3 years ago. This is the indigo mark, which they started using in 1910 and used into the 60s for as long as they were producing pottery. Artist signature on the side. It's a student. I don't recognize her name.
The North Dakota School of Mines began producing pottery in the early 1900s as part of its ceramics program, and pieces from the school became closely tied to the American arts and crafts movement. These works were made by students, but they were guided by strong training and high standards. What helps date this piece is the indigo mark, a stamp the school began using around 1910 and continued using into the 1960s as long as pottery was being produced there. On the side, there is a clear artist's signature, which belongs to a student. There is a small bulge near the top, and in many cases, a bulge like this can mean a bad repair, which collectors dislike. Here, though, the bulge is a manufacturing flaw from the time it was made. In the end, this quiet piece speaks loudly about value, history, and the lasting pull of handmade craft.
Arts and crafts collectors are a rabid type, and North Dakota School of Mines collectors are very enthusiastic as well. That's why I feel this piece at auction would bring somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000.
Hot dog.
Yeah.
It is Minton pâte-sur-pâte, which means paste on paste. And this is a very expensive and very time-consuming process of building up layers of liquid slip to make these very intricate, detailed designs. And they are on both sides of the vase.
Minton was one of the most respected English pottery firms of the 19th century, famous for pushing technical limits in decorative ceramics. Their artists became especially known for pâte-sur-pâte, a French term that means paste on paste, a method admired across Europe for its precision and beauty. Pâte-sur-pâte is not painted in one step. The artist builds the image slowly by brushing layer after layer of liquid clay, called slip, onto the surface. Each layer must dry before the next one is added. This vase is a strong example of that demanding process. The designs are highly detailed and carefully modeled, not just on one side, but all the way around the vase. That alone sets it apart, since many pieces only carry decoration on the front. Look closely, and people can see how the raised figures of Roman soldiers riding chariots almost float above the surface. The quality here is clear, from the crisp edges to the balanced composition. Pieces like this were never meant to be ordinary household objects.
This is a wonderful example, great quality, and a real treasure for you to have inherited.
I took a long lunch one day and I scanned some of the old antique shops that I'd be around. Just as I walked in the store, I saw this kind of across the room. I had to go over and pick it up and take a look. And I think I paid about $40 for it. It was exactly what I hoped it would be.
The maker of this pot changed the future of American ceramics. Maija Grotell was born in Helsinki and trained in Europe, but she came to the United States in 1927 because women artists had very limited chances back home. After arriving in New York, Grotell taught pottery at the Henry Street Settlement and later worked at Rutgers University in New Jersey. She wanted a teaching job at Cranbrook Academy of Art, but at first they refused to hire her because they wanted a man. When Cranbrook finally brought her on in 1938, she hesitated, worried that male colleagues might take credit for her work. There, she trained some of the most important studio potters in America, including Richard DeVore and Toshiko Takaizu. The form is simple and confident, and the glaze is smooth and beautifully balanced in color. It is not decorated with carved or incised designs, but that restraint is part of its strength. Pieces like this show Grotell's deep understanding of clay, proportion, and surface. On the bottom, the pot is marked with MG for Maija Grotell, along with a joined C&A mark for Cranbrook Academy. Not every Cranbrook piece carries this cipher, but many do, and it clearly places this pot within her time there. That small mark connects this quiet object to a major chapter in American art education.
In terms of value, not a big surprise here. Because the pot's not decorated, it's beautifully glazed and a great color too for her work, but this would be at auction for somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000. It could do a bit more than that, but that's the price range. Had the piece been decorated by her with her incised designs, the price would go up from there, but for an undecorated piece, it's really quite exquisite.
Oh, that's fantastic.
This was left to me by my mother, and it belonged to her mother, and my mother always called it willowware.
Frederick Reed was an English potter and designer who worked in the early 1900s. He is known for creating innovative glazes and artistic pottery designs that combined elegance with craftsmanship. After moving to the United States, he designed the red faience line for Weller Pottery in Zanesville, Ohio, which became famous for its vibrant colors and detailed patterns. The piece in question is a Weller red faience vase, once called willowware by the owner's mother. It was part of a large pottery collection produced in Zanesville. The blue version is the most sought after by collectors, prized for its color and craftsmanship. People can even see the artist's signature, Weller red faience, neatly inscribed, confirming its authenticity. This piece has been carefully preserved, though it has a small hairline at the rim. Weller red faience pieces combine history, artistry, and craftsmanship in a way that makes them timeless.
This particular piece has the value of at least $2,500 in perfect condition. I did notice it has a tight hairline at the rim, which is not very large, but that may take away some of the value down to perhaps $2,000.
My mother and dad were living along the Ohio River in 1937 when the flood occurred. They were in their 30s. They decided to just go to New York City and have an adventure and go to some Broadway shows instead of cleaning up after the flood. And while they were there, they purchased this vase.
Back in 1937, a devastating flood along the Ohio River forced a family to go to New York City. It was there that they purchased this vase, bringing a piece of distant culture into their home. The vase itself is marked with a Chien Lung period-style seal dating roughly between 1735 and 1796. But it was actually made later during China's Republic period, which lasted from 1912 to 1949. This was a time when many artisans who had once worked for the imperial household moved into private production. They created objects with honorific marks to show superior quality, stability, and a sense of prosperity in the new government. Although this type of vase was fairly ordinary in China at the time, collectors today see it as highly desirable. The colors, the form, and the craftsmanship reflect a period of transition and hope in Chinese history, just before the disruptions of World War II. For over 40 years, it's been a reminder of bold choices, history, and beauty.
When your parents bought it, they probably paid about $30 for it, which was a fair amount in 1937. 20 years ago, this would have sold at auction for maybe $200 to $300. But today, people in China are collecting this, and it's a budding area of interest. So at auction, this would sell in the range of $5,000 to $8,000.
My goodness, that's quite a return on that investment.
This is part of my grandfather's collection.
Niloak pottery was made in Benton, Arkansas by the Highton family, led by Charles Highton. The name Niloak is actually kaolin spelled backwards, which is the main ingredient in porcelain. Around 1912, they started creating missionware by combining different colored clays to get this unique swirl effect. Even though this isn't porcelain, it's earthenware made from local clays, the technique made these pieces stand out. Niloak continued making these distinctive swirled pieces until the 1940s, and their work is closely associated with mission-style furniture and decor. Many Niloak jars were made in pairs, but jars this large are rare. It would have required a very strong person to throw the clay, and it may have been used as a sand jar in front of a Masonic temple to safely extinguish cigarettes. The colors swirl naturally together, creating a beautiful, organic pattern that captures the spirit of early 20th century American art pottery. Even after more than 100 years, it remains a bold statement of design and artistry.
I believe in an auction setting that we're probably looking at this piece selling for between $5,000 and $7,000.
My goodness, I'd have never expected that.
My brother was in World War II in the Navy, and when he came to port, he would buy a lot of these things and send them to our parents.
These vases were made in China during the Guangxu period, between 1875 and 1908, a time known for incredibly detailed porcelain work. They were crafted in Jingdezhen, the porcelain capital of China, where artisans combined skill, patience, and color to create pieces that were both beautiful and meaningful. Each color on these vases, called enamel, had to be carefully fired at a lower temperature than the clay itself to avoid cracking or fading. The vases are covered in symbols that carry special meaning. Colorful bats, flowing clouds, and lotus flowers, traditional Chinese symbols of happiness, long life, and prosperity. The sheer abundance of these motifs was meant to show plenty, a blessing for the family who owned them. This pair was likely a wedding gift, bought new for the occasion. Over the years, one might show slight wear in the gilding, but overall, these vases are in excellent condition. Their workmanship is exquisite, a testament to the precision and artistry of the artisans in Jingdezhen. Even the writing at the bottom tells a story. Next to the word China, someone added Chinese characters indicating their actual period of creation. The English China may have been added later to mark the country of origin for easier identification. What was once simple family stuff has become a rare and treasured window into Chinese culture, craftsmanship, and history.
Want to venture an idea on the value just of these two?
$500 apiece.
Well, I think it's a bit more. It's going to be about $15,000 to $25,000 at
Holy
auction.
Toledo. Well, we'll take better care of them and be sure no one takes that finish off.
It belonged to a gentleman named Jack Sawyer from New Orleans that collected antique glass, and he does have an exhibit in the New Orleans Museum.
In Waveland, Mississippi, a treasure survived. Hurricane Katrina. It's pottery made by a Hungarian company called Zsolnay, famous for their eosin glaze, which creates a golden-green metallic sheen. The metalwork on this piece is extraordinary. At first glance, it looks like delicate iridescent glass from the early 1900s. But it's not glass. Georg Schmidt, a notable German artist, designed the peacock motif. Two full peacocks wrap around the vase, their tails spreading across the base. tiny glass tiles are inset to mimic the eyes of the feathers. The base itself is gilded pewter, adding an elegant, almost regal touch to the design. The vase also carries the mark Orion and the number 272, showing it was a collaboration between Hungarian and German Art Nouveau makers. Orion, a short-lived German company based in Nuremberg, was active only from 1903 to 1906. The German style, called Jugendstil, gave this piece a more geometric, structured look compared to the more ornate French Art Nouveau. It's a symbol of resilience and a rare glimpse into the beauty of early 20th century Art Nouveau.
On today's market at auction, I would value it between $7,000 and $10,000. One almost identical to this sold at auction within the last 2 years for $12,000. So my $7,000 and $10,000 is a bit on the conservative side, but I'd rather be that way, but easily worth $7,000 and $10,000.
Well, I love Jack, but I didn't know he loved me that much.
It was given to my great-grandfather in Shanghai, I believe in the 1920s, from the French embassy or French consulate.
Sèvres has been making exquisite porcelain in France since the 18th century, and their pieces are prized for craftsmanship, color, and artistic style. This vase was gifted to a great-grandfather in Shanghai in the 1920s, a time when European art and luxury items were highly sought after in China. Sèvres porcelain is recognizable by its signature marks, and this vase carries both an underglazed green mark from 1912 and a red mark from 1914. That tells us the vase was first made as a blank in 1912, then hand-decorated a couple of years later. The design is Art Nouveau, a style that was modern and popular in Europe around the turn of the century. The flowers and winding tendrils show delicate, hand-enameled work that stands out from earlier, more traditional Sèvres styles. For someone in China at that time, it would have been a strikingly modern Western piece, something completely different from what they were used to seeing. Every curve, every painted flower on this Sèvres vase tells a story that connects France and Shanghai.
Because of the great quality and the wonderful style of this vase, it would probably now be worth somewhere in the $2,500 to $3,500 range.
These are urns that I inherited from my grandmother, and just love them.
The Sèvres factory was the royal porcelain factory in France. Founded in the 1700s, it became famous for producing porcelain for King Louis and his court. Artists there perfected tiny, intricate paintings on porcelain, capturing everything from courting couples to scenic landscapes in vivid color. While these urns were inspired by that tradition, they were actually crafted from metal coated in enamel. Enamel is made from finely ground glass that's fused to metal under intense heat. This process creates a hard, glossy surface that looks like porcelain but is much more durable. On these urns, the tiny panels are painted with a courting couple on one side and a landscape on the lid, with even more scenic panels on the back. Small accents that look like pearls and garnets are called jeweling, which is a special type of enamel decoration. These urns are actually potpourri, designed to hold scented flowers or incense. The open band at the top let the fragrance escape, filling a room with subtle perfume. The gilt bronze mounts add another layer of luxury. Although there's no signature on these urns, the craftsmanship is unmistakable. They were made around 1860 in the Sèvres style, and early 20th century restorations were applied to protect the delicate metal and enamel. These are heirlooms full of history, artistry, and care.
What do you think they're worth?
I have no idea.
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course you did.
They are a very, very finely painted pair of potpourris from around 1860 in the Sèvres style, and they're probably worth around $8,000 to $12,000.
Oh my gosh.
They're beautiful. There is one thing that I wanted to point out, though, just for the future. It looks like very early, probably in the 20th century, there was a restoration that was made here. It's very easy to chip this metal, and without that little bit of restoration, they would be worth even more, but they are a terrific pair of potpourris. You must have been Grandma's favorite.
That's it. How'd you know? Thanks
for coming in.
Appreciate it.
You've brought a wonderful piece of glass here today, and you've brought a wonderful daughter along with you.
Yes, ma'am.
One of your favorite pieces, is it?
Yes, I like the way it looks. The colors are really pretty.
The vase was made in Austria by Loetz, a company famous for its iridescent art glass at the turn of the 20th century. Loetz glassmakers experimented with color, light, and texture, creating pieces that shimmer differently depending on how the sun hits them. These artisans often free-blended the glass, adding layers of color and then carefully combing it to create flowing, wavy patterns. Each vase was unique, hand-blown, and polished at the base to show the maker's craftsmanship. What makes this vase so striking is the way the colors interact. The outside glows a soft, oceanic blue, while the inside radiates a warm, red tone. Hold it to the light, and the silver-like iridescence dances across the dimples and rippled top, making the piece feel alive. Its hand-blown quality and indentation, the polished pontil at the base, and the combed decoration all tell the story of skilled glassmakers who treated every piece like art. There is no signature on the base. It's more than just a piece of glass. It's a shining example of Loetz's timeless craftsmanship.
You have any idea what it's worth?
No, ma'am. Not at all.
You said you were a little nervous about that, Megan.
About the outcome. We just figured it was something like $20 to $50 maybe. I mean, much more, isn't it?
Much more, right. Loetz pieces of this type are very popular right now, and I would expect at auction it would bring about $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
It's a good
We just
age.
thought it was 20.
Great-grandfather worked for Tico. This is a picture taken around the turn of the century of my great-grandfather and his buddies at the plant.
A photo from the early 1900s shows a group of men at a factory standing proudly beside the beginnings of an American pottery tradition. Another shows Mr. Gates, the founder of Teco Pottery, which he started in 1881 near Crystal Lake, Illinois. Teco, sometimes pronounced Teco or Tico, is celebrated for more than just pottery. They specialized in architectural ceramics that became part of buildings across the country. Their work embodies the arts and crafts movement, which values handcrafted beauty, simple forms, and nature-inspired designs. While Teco is well known for larger architectural pieces, the smaller decorative items, like vases and tiles, show the subtle artistry that collectors adore. One of the most striking pieces is a tall rose vase, adorned with irises, painted in Teco's iconic matte green. This comes from a microcrystalline glaze, a special technique they developed around 1905. The glaze creates tiny crystals in the surface, giving the piece depth, sparkle, and a texture that feels alive. Larger crystalline examples are rare, making this vase especially special. Alongside the vase, there are Cuenca tiles, also crafted in the arts and crafts style. These tiles were both decorative and functional. They show how Teco merged art with everyday objects. Even smaller objects like Teco pipes carry artistry. Normally worth very little, these pipes are carved and signed with the word Teco and other initials. Teco pottery reminds that even everyday objects can hold extraordinary beauty when made by a masterful hand.
As far as pricing goes, these pipes to a Teco collector must be worth about $500 a piece. Oh. Something like this, maybe $600 to $900. Something more architectural, which is more what people are looking for these days. That's more like $1,000 to $1,500. A rare vase like that, more like $1,500 to $2,000. This beautiful tile alone, $1,000. And this big one, easily $20,000 to $30,000. And perhaps, who knows what that would bring? It could bring $40,000 at auction. It's spectacular. I've never seen this particular form.
Oh my. In July 2011, my husband and I saw an advertisement for a country auction. It was literally in a barn in central Illinois. When we walked in, we were just love at first sight. Didn't know anything about the marks on the bottom, but we just fell in love.
Lonhuda pottery was created by William Long, who had previously worked with Weller Pottery. After a disagreement with Sam Weller, Long moved to Denver and started his own pottery company. He called his line Denver Lonhuda and specialized in soft green glazes decorated with delicate floral patterns. Each piece often carries the LF mark, standing for Lonhuda faience, and sometimes a date. The vase is clearly marked 1903, which makes it an early and rare example of his work. The form itself is unusual, and there aren't many like it. The vase is covered in a gentle, vegetal floral design, the kind that Lonhuda became famous for. The glaze is soft, almost velvety, highlighting the skill and care Long put into each piece. He handled every step, from shaping to glazing, giving each vase a personal touch. It represents a moment in early 20th century American craftsmanship in the personal touch of William Long.
I think we're probably looking at a retail price of maybe $3,500.
Oh.
In auction setting, it might be more like $3,000, but
Wow.
I think your husband did good.
Yes, he did.
I found these at a yard sale in a dirty garage. They were filthy. I paid 50 cents for these.
One of America's finest glassmakers, Steuben glass, particularly during the Frederick Carter era, was celebrated for its elegant craftsmanship and timeless beauty. These pieces are hand-blown American Steuben glass from around 1910. The glass is a special type called verre de soie, which means glass of silk. It has a soft, glowing texture that looks almost like fabric frozen in glass. On one piece, a careful inspection revealed the faint remnants of an acid stamp signature, proving its authenticity. The intricate Art Nouveau engraved designs make each piece unique, showcasing both the artist's vision and meticulous craftsmanship. What makes these pieces even more remarkable is that they were made over a century ago, yet the colors, textures, and engraved patterns still feel alive. These four small, forgotten objects prove that history and beauty often hide in the most unlikely places.
In a retail venue, something like these would probably sell for $200 a piece.
Ooh, that's great.
My mom was in France last year and was spending about a month there, and one of the things she wanted to do was visit several of the flea markets. And so she found the large one at one flea market and then the other two at a different flea market while she was there. And she used to be a florist, so she really is drawn to flowers and kind of goes in with the rest of her theme at home and just really liked the flowers.
A trip to Paris isn't just about the Eiffel Tower or croissant. Mont Joye was a French company based in Paris. They specialized in enamel work on fine glass, often decorating pieces with flowers. Many of their works were signed, but even when markings are faint or missing, the beauty and craftsmanship shine through. Each piece was carefully painted with enamel, giving a vibrant, durable finish that really makes the flowers pop. The largest piece stands 12 inches tall. It features a ruffled top that makes it extra rare. Most Mont Joye vases have straight edges, but this rose-like design adds an elegance that collectors love. The colors are rich, the irises glow against the glass, and the hand-painted detail is exquisite. A smaller purple vase is decorated with delicate pansies. Even in a smaller size, the enamel work is superb, with subtle layers of color and depth. The final piece is a rare biscuit jar covered in irises on an enamel background. It even has a pewter top, which could be silver-plated to restore its shine. These Mont Joye pieces are windows into a time when French artisans poured skill and care into every piece, making each one unique.
So this particular piece, again, was $180. Because of this top and because of the size of this, for insurance, this would be about $700 to $800.
Oh, wow. She did do well.
She did do well. This one would be probably $200 to $400.
Okay.
Then you come to the little rare biscuit jar, and this could entertain a price in the $500 or $600 range.
Nice.
Well, it originally belonged to my parents. They are both deceased now, and so it is now in my custody. They called it the brass urn, the bronze urn, depending on the day. So I don't know whether it's brass or bronze, but it is the urn.
Vessels like this trace their origins to the first millennium BC, where they were cast for Chinese officials and used for wine. Over time, they became symbols of prestige, craftsmanship, and ceremonial importance. The urn was made between 1780 and 1810, during a period when Chinese artisans recreated ancient designs to honor the past. This was influenced by the Qianlong Emperor, who ruled from 1735 to 1796 and had a passion for archaic bronzes. The urn's shape, with its serpentine handles, is a direct nod to vessels cast centuries earlier. Guer, surface glows with gold splashes, a technique called fire gilding. Mercury and gold are fused, then heated until the mercury evaporates, leaving luxurious golden patterns. These gilded spots were a sign of wealth and imperial taste. 6 Chinese characters for long life, each written in a different style, decorate the vessel. On the underside, a 4-character mark shows it was made for the Jade Hall in the imperial city. Small censers were common, but a large, ornate vessel like this is rare. This gilded bronze urn is a bridge between centuries.
There's a huge interest in these gold splash bronzes. They usually come in small forms like censers, but to have a large and very impressive form like this, you're looking at auction between $30,000 and $50,000.
Oh my God. Well, thank you very much. This is something that will stay in the family for a long time.
My wife's grandfather was an employee of U.S. Steel and a diplomat for the United States after World War II. They were world travelers, and they acquired it either in the 1920s or in the 1940s.
These kinds of cloisonné vases were crafted in Japan during the Meiji period, a time when the country had just opened up to Western trade, and local artisans began making exquisite objects specifically for collectors abroad. Meiji period artisans were incredibly skilled. Many of these vases were meant to impress Western collectors with bold colors, intricate patterns, and a level of craftsmanship that few could replicate. What makes this vase special is its color and detail. The deep oxblood red, often mistaken for Chinese porcelain, is actually a hallmark of Japanese cloisonné. Every curve, every enamel-filled section was handcrafted. Even small flaws, like near the dragon's nostrils, tell people it's handmade, not factory-made. These imperfections add character and prove the vase's authenticity. The dragon designs on this vase were not just decoration. They symbolized imperial authority, giving each piece a sense of power and prestige. The piece is beaten up at the back, showing signs of wear. Collectors still seek these pieces for their elegance, cultural significance, and the story each one carries from Japan to the West.
Well, in today's auction market, this piece would be estimated at about $2,500 to $4,000.
Great, good, I'm glad.
The Japanese market has softened up a little bit over the last 20 years. If you had brought this into the Roadshow 20 years ago, I probably would have said $6,000 to $10,000.
Okay.
This is a Lalique, signed Lalique vase that was originally with my grandmother. And the story is that my grandmother was decluttering the house and decided that she didn't want this any longer, so she was going to give it to Goodwill. And my mother came to her house and said, "What do you have in this box?" And my grandmother, Ricolta Granny, said, "You know, these are things I'm just giving away." And Mom looked and she says, "Yeah, could I have that, please?" And so it went to my mom. My mom knew that it was a signed Lalique and knew that there was value. But beyond that, that's all I really know about it.
René Lalique was a French glassmaker and jeweler. Born in 1860, he became famous for combining classical beauty with modern techniques. Lalique created jewelry, perfume bottles, and vases that remain icons of the Art Deco movement. His pieces are admired for elegance, delicate detail, and intricate design. This vase, called Bouchardon, was designed in 1926. The name likely references Edmé Bouchardon, an 18th century French sculptor known for classical figures in the Louvre. Lalique often gave his works historical names, which can make tracing them tricky without museum references. The vase was cast in 3 parts and then assembled. Each section fits perfectly, creating a flowing, articulated form. On the bottom are 2 signatures, a molded mark and a script signature, both confirming its authenticity. It was made in 3 color options: clear, opalescent, and smoky topaz, or fumé in French. This one is the smoky topaz, a warm, elegant color that highlights the classical figures holding a festoon of flowers. Their poses echo the graceful lines of the Art Deco style. A simple object became a window into the life of one of France's greatest glassmakers.
In May of 2017, one of these sold at auction. The estimate was $2,500 to $3,500.
Really?
But it sold for $8,125.
Wow. Wow.
So I would, because I'm conservative, I would say I would put a retail value, because sometimes auction and retail can be very similar.
Yes.
So I would say probably between $6,000 and $8,000 in a retail store.
I'm upping my insurance. That's fantastic.
To the best of my knowledge, it was purchased in New York when my father took a trip there. Maybe the late 1950s.
There was an abundance of ethnographic Asian works of art being offered in New York. Did he happen to mention what he may have paid for the object?
No.
A small red box tucked away on a shelf. Might look ordinary at first, but this is no simple trinket. It's a 19th century Chinese cinnabar lacquer box, a product of centuries-old craft that blends patience, skill, and artistry. This box is made from red lacquer, also called cinnabar lacquer, a material used since the 12th century in China. Craftsmen would apply 20 to sometimes 200 layers of sap, letting each dry before carefully carving intricate designs. By the 19th century, these objects became larger and more detailed, reflecting the tastes of wealthy merchant families who wanted luxury and refinement in their homes. The carvings on this box tell stories. There's a playful scene of a drunken poet reclining in the sun with his attendant holding a wine pot. Another panel shows a learned gentleman with antiques and an attendant writing quietly. These figural cartouches were popular in the early to mid-19th century, bridging the restrained scholarly objects of the 18th century and the more lavish tastes of the merchant class that followed. This box is unusually large for cinnabar lacquer, which makes it even more impressive. Most earlier examples were small, delicate pieces, while this one shows bold proportions. It almost certainly originally had a mate, as many of these boxes were made in pairs. The core is wood, unlike later 20th century examples, which often used metal or tin as a base. Even a single piece like this gives people a window into the world of 19th century China. This box is a testament of human skill and imagination.
The condition's fabulous. You only have one, correct?
That's correct.
This almost certainly had a mate when it started life. So it would have been a pair. In a retail setting, it would probably sell for around $15,000.
$15,000. That's amazing. It really is. Would be nice to find its mate.
Good luck.
Yes, indeed.
You got this piece
from my mother-in-law's estate.
Hidden away in a kitchen cabinet among soup cans, this three-lobed vase might have looked like a simple decorative object at first glance. But behind its soft, matte green glaze lies the story of William Gruby, an American potter whose work helped define the arts and crafts movement. William Gruby started his pottery around the turn of the 20th century. He became famous for a unique matte, green glaze, which he developed himself. It wasn't just any green. This glaze clings to the leaves, fills the buds, but never overflows the edges. Gruby pieces like this won international awards, including a gold medal at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. His shapes and designs were organic and elegant, inspired by nature, and widely imitated by other potters who never quite matched his craft. This particular vase is a classic example of the faience period, likely made around 1905. Its three-lobed shape naturally divides into compartments for arranging flowers, making it both functional and beautiful. People can see the fat leaves and delicate buds carefully sculpted on each lobe. Each Gruby vase was handmade and fired with glazes that were unique to his workshop. This was not a commercial glaze. In fact, it contained elements like lead that made it impossible to replicate safely in modern production. The way the glaze settles into the curves and details of the vase shows the careful, meticulous work Gruby put into every piece. Its beauty, history, and craftsmanship make it a true treasure of American arts and crafts pottery.
This is worth, at auction, easily $1,500 to $2,000.
Well, that's good news. I hadn't any idea of that. Very nice, but it's not leaving the house.
I found it in the attic after I purchased the home, and it's literally moved from the attic to the basement where it resided until today.
So occupying a place of prominence in your basement?
In a box in the basement, hanging out, yeah.
Okay. And what made you bring it today?
I was looking for things to take, and it caught my eye, and how about this one?
Okay.
Rookwood Pottery was a major American ceramics company founded in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1880. It became famous for its artistic glazes, fine carving, and collaborations with talented artists. One of its most celebrated painters was Kotaro Shirayamadani, a Japanese artist who worked at Rookwood for decades. The vase itself tells an interesting story. It started life as a lamp, but its true form is a handcrafted Rookwood vase. The bottom reveals a Rookwood stamp and Shirayamadani's signature, confirming its origin and artistry. The glaze is called black opal, a rich, dark finish with hints of blue that shimmer in the light. Each flower on the vase was carved by hand, carefully shaded and layered to give depth and life to the design. It's not without its flaws. A drilled hole in the bottom and its top has been removed, showing it was converted into a lamp. But even with that, the craftsmanship shines through. The intricate carving, the soft color transitions, and the overall design make this vase a true piece of art.
What do you think it's worth?
Well, just looking with the Rookwood, the symbol, and vases in general, there's a range from a couple hundred to a couple thousand.
Yeah.
So I said, because of the damage, I was going to go about 500.
Okay. At auction, what would you say to $5,000 as a value?
It's wonderful. Yeah. That's awesome. And if it didn't have the hole?
I would say probably $8,000 to $10,000.
I'm so happy.
Not bad, huh?
That's amazing.
I inherited it from my mother. I figured by the color it must have been carnival glass.
What looks like carnival glass at first glance actually comes from an earlier, more refined European tradition. Around 1900, glassmakers in Germany and Central Europe were pushing decorative glass into bold new territory, experimenting with iridescent surfaces, sculptural forms, and rich color effects long before American carnival glass appeared. One of the most innovative firms of this period was Palmer König, founded in Bohemia, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The company became known for its Art Nouveau designs, flowing lines, organic shapes, and dramatic finishes meant to catch and reflect light from every angle. Palmer König pieces were often left unmarked, relying instead on their distinctive style, luminous surfaces, sculpted details, and a sense of movement that felt modern for its time. Their glass was aimed at a growing middle and upper class that wanted art in everyday objects, not just in museums. This particular piece, inherited from the owner's mother, fits squarely within that world. Though often mistaken for carnival glass because of its color and sheen, it predates that movement and reflects the European origins that helped inspire it.
Conservative retail estimate would be between $1,000 and $1,500.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
That's fine.
My husband's great-grandfather owned a jewelry store, and when he married, he took his wife on a wedding buying trip to New York City. And at one of the places, she saw these vases and admired them, but he said they couldn't afford them and he didn't buy them for her. And when they received the shipment, these vases were included with a congratulatory letter on their wedding. So they've been in the family ever since.
Yeah. So when was this wedding trip to New York?
It was 1866.
These vases belong to the moment when French glass-making was redefining luxury in the late 19th century. They were created by Auguste Jean, a Parisian glassblower born around 1830, working at a time when France was leading the world in decorative arts. Jean built his reputation during the great age of international exhibitions, earning a bronze medal at the 1878 Universal Exposition in Paris, a milestone that confirmed his technical mastery and artistic vision. By the 1880s and 1890s, his work was highly sought after by collectors who favored innovation over tradition. Jean's glass is known for its Japanesque influence, a style that swept Europe after Japan opened to Western trade. Flowing trails, asymmetrical decoration, and exotic motifs reflected a fascination with Japanese art while still rooted in French craftsmanship. Each piece was hand-blown, making no two exactly alike. These vases are exceedingly rare today and stand as survivors from a pivotal moment in the history of European art glass.
Value today at retail is between $3,000 and $5,000
For the pair.
for the pair. Thank you.
Me and my wife were shopping at a local Goodwill. I saw it sitting on the shelf and I thought, oh, it's so beautiful. And I knew it was good quality, but I knew nothing about it. So I picked it up and looked, it had markings. And I thought, well, I don't know who it is, but for $4.99, I'm gonna buy it.
Some treasures aren't found in galleries. They're found on a Goodwill shelf for $4.99. This vase is a standout example of Overbeck pottery, a unique American art pottery studio run by four sisters, namely Margaret, Elizabeth, Mary Frances, and Katie Overbeck, in Cambridge City, Indiana, from 1911 into the 1930s. Overbeck became known for its hand-thrown, hand-tooled ceramics that blended arts and crafts simplicity with striking modern design. Unlike mass-produced wares, each piece was individually shaped and decorated, often featuring stylized figures, natural motifs, and unconventional glaze combinations. The studio's best period was the late 1910s through the early 1920s, when conventionalized designs, simplified geometric forms derived from natural imagery, became central to their aesthetic. On this vase, the repeated motif shows a striped figure walking before a large pink sun and a tree reduced to angular branches and triangular leaves. This kind of visual shorthand reflects the sisters' mastery of design economy, reducing complex forms to their powerful essence. Marked OBK with the initials E and F incised on the surface, the piece embodies technical precision, even firing, balanced form, and confident tool work.
At auction, it would bring somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000.
Can't believe that.
I mean, it's a seriously good piece of Overbeck.
Goodness.
It's got everything it's got to have. This one's got it.
Got my heart thumping.
My grandfather and his three siblings were orphans. His sister was young enough that she had to go live with family. So she went to live with her mother's first cousin in a house in Pensacola, Florida. When she died, she was the last of the family member to live in that house, and my dad and his brother inherited the house and its contents, and this was part of it.
And did your family do something else with this?
At some point early, I suspect in the 1900s, my mom says when electricity became popular in homes, they had it wired to be a lamp. And they did not actually drill a hole in the bottom. The wire for the electricity came out the top. But she didn't like it as a lamp, so she got rid of that, put it on the piano and as a vase. And it's been mine for about 20 years.
This piece was made by the Mint Washington Glass Company, one of America's most inventive glass makers. of the late 19th century. Founded in Massachusetts in 1850, Mest Washington became known for pioneering opaque and satin finish glass that rivaled European porcelain in quality and appearance. In 1886, the company introduced its Albertine line, white opal glass with a soft satin finish designed specifically to compete with the celebrated Royal Worcester porcelain coming out of England. The idea was to offer American households an elegant alternative without the fragility of true porcelain. By 1893, Mint Washington renamed this line Crown Milano, filing the trademark and marking pieces with a crowned CM monogram. Crown Milano pieces often feature rich enamel decoration applied through stencils with layered pigments and delicate raised gilding that creates a framed vignette effect. Artists frequently depicted landscapes, boats, or European scenes in vivid color against the opal ground, marrying glassmaking with painterly sensibilities. This particular vase retains its original enamel scene of boats and Venetian architecture, accented by intricate gold framing.
In a retail shop, it would bring between $2,000 and $3,000.
Wonderful. I'm not going to sell it. It's going to go back in my cabinet.
Well, I went to an antique show in Dallas, and across the room I hear, "I'm over here, Peggy," and there it was.
So it talked to you?
It talked to me, and it had a light under it on a stand, and I thought it was the most beautiful vase I had ever seen.
And did you buy it when you first saw it?
No, they said it wasn't for sale.
That's not nice.
No, I told them, I said, "What's it here for?"
So how did you get it?
Well, I said, "If you ever decide to sell it, would you call me?" And I gave them my name and phone number. I first saw it in the 70s. They called me, I bought it in 87, and they charged me $3,000.
It's hard to overstate the importance of Dôme Nancy in the story of Art Nouveau glass. Founded in 1878 by Jean Dôme and later led by his sons, the Daume brothers, the firm became one of France's most innovative glassmakers around 1900, working from the city of Nancy, the heart of the French Art Nouveau movement. Alongside Émile Gallé, Daume helped define a new artistic language that rejected historical imitation and embraced nature, symbolism, and technical experimentation. Their workshops were known for mastering acid etching, enameling, gilding, and cameo carving, often layering techniques on a single piece. This vase is a classic example of that ambition. Made around 1900, it features violets, a popular Art Nouveau motif, carved directly into the glass using acid, then carefully enameled and fired so the color became permanent. What makes it especially unusual is the engraved and gilded band at the base, decorated with grasshoppers and geometric forms inspired by Egyptian revival design, a major influence at the turn of the century. The gilt Dôme Nancy signature, complete with the Cross of Lorraine, confirms its origin.
Besides being worth a lot to you, I would put a retail value of probably in the $15,000 range.
Right. That's great.
It was, I believe, my great-great-grandmother's, and the women in my family on my mother's side were all born and raised in Hawaii, and so this was from my great-great-grandmother in Hawaii. My mom told me that it's a Chinese celadon vase, and she said that it's very old because it doesn't say made in China.
Celadon represents one of China's longest and most refined ceramic traditions, admired for more than 7 centuries. First developed in the 14th century, Celadon porcelain was prized for its jade-like glaze, a surface meant to echo the spiritual and cultural value of jade in Chinese society. By the 18th century, during the High Qing period, Chinese kilns had perfected carving and glazing techniques, producing porcelains that balanced technical mastery with symbolic decoration. These wares were collected locally, traded across Asia, and carried overseas by families who moved between China and the Pacific world, including Hawaii. This vase belongs squarely in that tradition. It is carved porcelain, not molded, then covered in a celadon glaze. From the neck downward, the decoration unfolds in deliberate bands, a geometric ground, a lingji or rouilly band, finely outlined with double edges and tiny dot details, followed by leaf lappets, a Greek key, and a central panel framed by twin lotus petals. At the center, Buddhistic lions chase curling ribbons, deeply carved with overlapping movement and shadow. The white porcelain foot, its worn rim, surface scratches, and soft coffee-colored discoloration all signal age and honest use. The slender neck and bulbous body mark it as a classic 18th century bottle form, created at the height of Chinese decorative arts.
I would think today in a retail setting, it would be worth $25,000.
Wonderful. You've made me very happy.
It was my grandfather's, passed on to my father, and now it passed on to me.
But you had a brother that did something funny with it. What was that? That was a good story.
My younger brother didn't like to take any type of vitamins or medicine, antibiotics or whatever. So when my mother would give it to him, he put it in his mouth like he was taking it, and when she'd turn and go away, he'd put it in the jar. He wasn't getting any better. I watched him, put him in the jar, and it was about halfway full with vitamins and aspirins and things like that.
Oh, those boys.
China was one of the earliest civilizations to master bronze casting, developing sophisticated techniques as early as the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Bronze vessels were not decorative objects alone. They played central roles in rituals, ancestor worship, and elite status, with specific shapes reserved for specific functions. One of these forms is the hu, a storage vessel with a rounded body, narrow neck, and distinctive mask handles fitted with loose rings. This form emerged as early as the Han dynasty, that is from 2nd century BC to 2nd century AD, and remained influential for centuries, often revived by later dynasties as an homage to antiquity. By the Qing dynasty from 1644 to 1912, Chinese artisans frequently recreated ancient bronze shapes for wealthy patrons, blending reverence for the past with contemporary tastes. Many of these pieces bear honorific reign marks, referencing earlier golden ages rather than their actual production date. The mark on this vessel reads Da Ming Xuande Nianji, invoking the revered Xuande reign of the Ming dynasty from 1426 to 1435. However, stylistic clues, especially the EE, thin, refined splash gilding, point to a 19th century Qing origin, when gold decoration became more controlled and delicate. This bronze hu, richly gilded and carefully cast, was clearly made for someone of means.
Well, what would you say if I said $25,000 to $40,000 at auction?
Holy smoke. Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's great. That's good. That's very good. My little brother will like that. He won't hide his vitamins in there.
Well, we have a local retirement thrift store that I like to go to a lot, and I bought that at the shop. Since I've had it, different people have asked me whether it's real or fake. We can't tell. And maybe it could be Roseville, we don't.
Roseville pottery stands as one of the most influential American art potteries of the early 20th century. Founded in Roseville, Ohio, in 1890 and later centered in Zanesville, the company helped define American decorative ceramics. In its early years, Roseville produced finely hand-decorated artware created by skilled artists. As labor costs rose around 1910, the company shifted toward molded production lines, a move that allowed Roseville to scale nationally while still maintaining imaginative designs. Patterns like wisteria, futura, and pine cone made Roseville famous, and its work dominated the American market for decades, surpassing rivals such as Weller and Owens. Behind the scenes, Roseville artists regularly created experimental trial pieces, one-off designs never intended for mass production. These tests explored new glazes, colorways, and patterns before decisions were made. This vase is one of those rare experiments. The geranium-inspired design, unusual cross-hatching, and 2 different background color treatments reveal its test-piece purpose. The buff-colored Zanesville clay, soft yellow firing, and gentle foot ring are classic Roseville traits. Unmarked, it would originally have carried a silver foil label, confirming its place as a genuine Roseville experimental work from the 1920s. A glimpse into the creative process behind America's most celebrated pottery studio.
At auction today, it's worth about $2,000
Wow.
at auction. Okay?
Oh, that's terrific.
Here's the downside. This was worth 10 years ago about $5,000.
Wow.
And what's happened is the people that were buying it aren't buying anymore so much, and new people are not coming into the market. But in spite of the price drop-off that we've seen in Roseville over the last decade, you still have a piece that should certainly bring $2,000 and
wow.
could maybe bring a little
That's
bit more.
marvelous. Not bad for a $40 investment.
That's excellent.
Well, I found out that it's a piece of French cameo made by Gallé around the turn of the century.
Émile Gallé was one of the central figures of the Art Nouveau movement in France, working at the turn of the 20th century when nature-inspired design reshaped decorative arts. Based in Nancy, Gallé was both an artist and a scientist, deeply interested in botany, chemistry, and glass technology. His workshop became famous for cameo glass, a technique involving layers of colored glass that were carefully acid-etched and carved to reveal detailed, flowing designs. Gallé's pieces often reflected plants, symbolism, and poetry, and were celebrated at major world exhibitions in the late 1800s. This object fits squarely within that legacy. It is a French cameo glass piece by Gallé, produced around 1900. The glass was fire-polished, giving it a refined, luminous surface. Mounted in sterling silver, it carries clear silver marks, and close inspection shows that the silver was originally gilded, adding another layer of richness. The combination of sculpted glass, precious metal, and fine finishing places this piece among Gallé's most sophisticated decorative works, created at the height of his artistic influence.
For insurance, I would put this piece at $12,000.
I'm thrilled.
This is kind of a memorial trip. My wife passed away, and before she did, she had bought these vases, and she thought they were something that she wanted to take to the Roadshow. We got tickets, and then she passed, and so her twin sister and I and her husband decided we'd all come to the Roadshow and see what the vases were worth. She loved the Roadshow.
In the late 19th century, Bohemia, in today's Czech Republic, was the world's most important center for luxury glassmaking. By the 1800s, Bohemian workshops had mastered crystal-clear glass, deep jewel tones, and advanced enamel and painted decoration that rivaled painting on canvas. These objects were made for affluent European interiors, especially mantels, where pairs of vases framed clocks or mirrors as symbols of taste and refinement. Bohemian glassmakers were celebrated for landscape and genre scenes, often inspired by romantic painting, though fully scenic mantel vases were produced in small numbers and required exceptional skill. These particular vases date to around 1880 and were made as a matched pair of Bohemian mantel vases. What sets them apart is their scenic decoration, a type rarely encountered even by specialists. Each vase was hand-decorated, intended not for everyday use but for display. Their survival as a pair and their emotional journey to the Roadshow quietly honors both the artistry of Bohemian glassmakers and the woman who cherished them.
In a retail market, I would put these at a value of about $4,000.
Wow. All right.
This is an emotional one. Thank you for bringing them.
Thank you for having us.
Well, during World War II, my husband was in Europe. He was stationed in the Army. And the end of his tour, he was in Paris. And he loved it. And this was the first time, a number of years after the war, that he took me there.
How many years after the war, would you say?
Oh, Maybe 10.
10 years.
At least
okay.
10, yeah. I had to wait for my children to get a little bigger.
Right, of course.
And we found this in the flea market.
In the late 19th century, Ernest Leveillé emerged as one of France's remarkable art glassmakers. A student of Eugène Rousseau, a leading figure in French glass design, Leveillé inherited Rousseau's workshop and gallery in 1885, continuing and evolving the sophisticated techniques of his mentor. Paris at the time was a hub for innovation in glass making, with artists experimenting with metallic oxides, crackled glass, and intricate inclusions to achieve textures and colors that seemed almost magical. Leveillé's work often reflected the Orientalist style, popular in the early Art Nouveau movement, incorporating Asian-inspired motifs, flowing shapes, and decorative mounts that bridged European craftsmanship with Eastern aesthetics. This particular vase, acquired from a Paris flea market years after World War II, embodies those qualities. Its crackled glass, metallic highlights, and applied bronze mounts create a delicate, shimmering effect, while its form and decoration clearly reference Oriental art. Rarely seen even by specialists, this vase is a testament to Leveillé's mastery and Parisian artistry, and it carries the legacy of its maker.
If I had this in the shop today, we would probably sell it for between $8,000 and $10,000. So, it's a great piece of glass by a great French glass master, and I thank you for bringing it in.
Well, thank you very much.